Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at button versus big blind single raise pot flop C betting on wet ragged boards. So here I have a button versus big blind single raise pot 4-span database, and here on my other monitor I have a button versus big blind single raise pot 6-span database. So a 4-span board, for example, is a board where there are 4 ranks that would complete a straight. So like on ace 9 6, for example, a 5 7 8 or 10 would complete a straight draw. So it's just a way of measuring the connectivity of the board and how wet the board is. So yeah, let's hop into it. So let's start with discussion about preflop. So the imposition range, notice that the hands aren't at 100% frequency. This is because in the Monker Sims that Thomas ran for Zenith, the hands are split into different open sizes. So this is the 2.5 big blind open size, and this is the out of position defense against a 2.5 big blind open. So if we take a look at the tree, starting pot 5.5, 100 big blinds effective, and yeah, it's a 101 gigabyte tree, so quite sizable. So let's hop right in. So this is the database. So let's take a look at. We'll start with the higher boards and just work our way down. Throughout looking at the C betting strategies, I'm going to flip back and forth between the 4-span and the 6-span database because I want to show how slightly different textures play differently as the imposition player. And what I want to enable you guys to do is to take a different approach to C betting. Like in the current state of the game, simplifying a C betting strategy to just betting like a small size with your entire range is sort of the fad, you know? So, which, I mean, versus plenty of player profiles, it certainly works, and there's plenty of board textures where I certainly do it, but in general, I'm encouraging you guys to be able to play the check back line. Given the state of the game and how popular betting a high frequency on the flop is, most regs are going to be highly studied in the bet call line on the flop. So I want you guys to be able to take your opponents through many different lines and mix it up. Like there was Doug Polk sort of went on a rant on stream years ago during the Bankroll Challenge, and I saw this on YouTube probably several months ago, just going back and watching old YouTube videos, and he said what made Sauce, Ben Solsky, so good is he could just take his opponents through just any line. And that's sort of where Doug realized he needed to get a bit more creative with his play and be able to play bunches of different lines. He said the challenge against Sauce was where he learned loads, and because during the first portion of the challenge against Sauce had like an insanely high flop check bet frequency, like over 70%. For heads up, that's quite high. So he realized he was understudied in that line and sort of took the initiative to expand his game. And I'm encouraging you guys to do the same. But the reason I bring that up is because when we use a 2.5 big blind open, it's going to be a more polar open range than, say, a min open. I know you guys aren't going to be using these exact sizes and frequencies in game, especially if you're not using Monk Reviewer simultaneously. But when you run these sims with a polar opening range, a more polar opening range, there's going to be more checkbacks on virtually every board. But especially the boards like you would see close to a range bet. Let's see, like something like King Jack 5 two-tone wouldn't be a range bet. Maybe King Queen 3 rainbow would be pretty close. Like you'll here you see a 15% check back. So on a board as good as King Queen 3 for imposition, yeah, you'll start to see more checkbacks. So I just want to give you guys the opportunity to take the initiative and show you guys how to construct a betting and a checking range on these different boards. So enough ranting, I will just hop right into it. So notice I also have the display method at 100%. So just so you can see the frequencies, it doesn't mean each player has these hands at 100% frequency. So okay, let's start with ace 9 6. So it's just going to be sort of what you would expect: high frequency, small bets with some checkbacks. So when you see a high frequency small bet, it more has to do with the out of position player's inability to defend against a small bet. Like they're going to be folding over a third of their range versus a quarter pot bet. So that means the small bet is quite good. If you know anything about minimum defense, you know that's a pretty good bet. It doesn't apply so much on the flop for a bunch of different reasons. I'm not going to get into the theory of all of that. But yeah, if you can get out of position to fold over a third of their range with a quarter pot bet, you're doing really well. But it does have a lot to do with how dry this board is. So let's see, King Queen 3. You'll see again a bunch of small betting. Here, I mean, the imposition player is just interacting really well with this board. Let's see, so like on the ace 9 6 board, let's see, we have 20% top pair and 13% middle pair. 20% top pair, 13% middle pair. Let's see, on King Queen X, we have 13% top pair, 26% combined. And then on this board it was, yeah, so on the more, like we're just gonna have more top pairs the opener on the ace high boards. See, versus a small bet, so out of position's folding a little bit less. Yeah, but on these double Broadway boards, the imposition player is just going to be doing really well, and you can just default to a pretty high frequency c betting strategy. So as far as hand selection, so here you don't have to necessarily split into a quarter pot and a half pot. You can just use, a single 30% or a third of the pot size. It's totally fine. But if you want to develop a checkback range, so using hands like ace high, where ace high where the kicker is not an overcard to the board, is generally a hand you're going to want to favor a checkback. So like ace 9, if you hit a pair with ace 9 of diamonds, for example, you're going to have a decent hand. Like if you hit a 9 or an ace, you're going to have a pretty decent hand. And also, if you bet ace 9 and get check raised, well, that's like with the backdoor flush draw, that's pretty terrible. Given that you could have just checked back and you could hit an ace, you could hit a 9, you could pick up a diamond draw, that sort of thing. So doesn't make a bet that great. Whereas ace 10, you just have a draw to the nuts. Like if you bet and get raised, you can just call the ace 10. Whereas a hand like ace 9 would just have to fold. But yeah, these ace high without an overcard, without a gut shot, and these hands have plenty of showdown value. So just checking those back is fine. Yeah, and then you can just use these lower ace X. So like hands like ace 5 and ace 4 have the backdoor straight draw as well, so you can lean towards betting those hands. But yeah, these middling ace X, lean towards checking them back. You can still bet them, but just prefer to bet the hands that don't get hurt the most by getting check raised. So that's sort of why you would see ace 9 of hearts favor the bet as opposed to a hand like ace 9 of diamonds with the backdoor. Okay, and then yeah, you're checking. Okay, we barely have any queen deuce, but yeah, like the weaker queen X, you're starting to mix in some checkbacks, and then just betting more with the backdoor. And then these middling pocket pairs, you're gonna mix in some checkbacks. On the flush draw boards, you'll be betting the pocket pairs more often with the suit in hand, because when you hit a set, it will not be completing the flush draw because you hold the flush draw suit in your hand. Let's see. Yeah, and then like a hand like a7, just it has nothing going for it. But also you don't block it. So like, what makes a hand like 9-8 so different from 8-7? Well, 9-8 you block 10-9 and Jack-9. That would continue versus a bet. Whereas a7 you don't block any of that. You block a bunch of the folding range. Like if you bet small, like they're folding all this like 8 high, 7 high, all these offsuit 8 high, 7 high combos, so you just block a ton of the folding range, whereas 9-8 at least blocks some of the continues. So a hand like a7 that blocks so much of the folding range and doesn't block any continues is a hand you would favor checking back. It's just one of those junk hands you just don't really want to do anything with it. So yeah, and then like these lower hands, they'll just be mixing, but so like a hand like ace 9, you would favor betting without the backdoor, just because you don't want to get check raised when you have the backdoor, because you're giving up so much equity. Like you're getting the most equity denied from your hand. Whereas a hand like 7-4, well, I mean, who cares, right? Like, your hand was kind of trash anyhow. You have 7 high. If you hit a pair, like, good luck getting a showdown with that. Like, there's just not much going for your hand. You have a backdoor, you have backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and 7 high. So, you know, like, even if you get check raised, like, who cares? Yeah, so that's sort of some things you can keep in mind. And then, yeah, again, you can start to check back some of this weaker king X. You never want to get into a spot where, like, if you have a check back range, you can't have one of the pairs. Like, you just don't want to be in that situation. So, yeah. Let's take a look at King, Queen, 7. So this is a similar board, a bit more connected, but it's not so much different. The main difference is the flush draw. So you'll be pretty surprised to see how different the strategy is. So On these flush draw boards, you're going to take a more polar betting strategy. So basically the idea is, like I said earlier, when you bet small on a board like ace 9-6, the out of position player is going to struggle to defend against that bet, and they're just going to have so many auto folds. They're not going to be able to defend properly. But on flush draw boards, like anywhere from like 7 to like 10 or 11% of their range, it is going to be a flush draw, and they're going to have a really easy defend against pretty much any bet size, aside from an overbet, which even then the vast majority of their flush draws are going to be continuing on the flop. So they're not going to struggle nearly as much to defend at the proper frequency versus small bets. So on these flush draw boards, especially on wet rag boards, you're going to want to implement a more polar c-betting strategy. So on a board like King Queen 7, well, I mean, you have all the aces, ace king, kings and queens, and king queen, and out of position sure has plenty of king queen off, but they don't have any ace king or aces or kings or queens. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. So like when you overbet, like on a board like this with ace king, you're going to be wanting to get the money in on plenty of different runouts. So having an overbetting strategy makes a bit more sense. It's just that on a board like King Queen 3 Rainbow, when you bet small, they just have so many auto folds. You can just start to put a bunch of your junk hands that don't really make any money in the check back line into the small bet and make money with those hands. And that happens so often on a board like King Queen 3 Rainbow that it just makes sense to put a bunch of your range into that high frequency small bet size. But on a board like this where the out of position player can defend with flush draws and straight draws, etc., yeah, you can just start to pile money in with when you have a nut advantage like you do on this board. Again, they'll have some king queen off, so on plenty of runouts, you're not going to want to put the money in with ace king. I think I said you want to put the money in with ace king on a bunch of different runouts. That's not necessarily true, but with a hand like king queen, you will, and they'll be turning and rivering plenty of two pair hands that you can stack. And when you overbet the flop, it's going to be pretty easy to get the money in. So, but getting two big bets in with ace king is almost always going to be good. And then depending on the run out, you can stack off on the river pretty comfortably. So yeah. Let's see. Let's take a look at Queen 9-2 Rainbow. So on the Queen High and Jack High boards, you're typically going to want to be leaning towards a more half pot size. Okay, so here, this is pretty complex. But again, this is a somewhat dry board. Like there's plenty of gut shots and straight draws on this board, but there's no flush draw, and it's a higher board, so the imposition player is going to be doing better on this board. In general, we can see we have a bit over 54% equity. So, but yeah, on these wet boards like this one, you're gonna have to mix, especially on these Queen High and Jack High boards. So if we look at like imagine Jack 8-3 is something similar. Okay, yeah, so like half pot and pot. But again, this is a flush draw board. Is there like a Rainbow Jack High board in here? Oh, Jack 8-3. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so yeah, you're gonna have some small bets, some half pot, and some overbetting. So yeah, you'll like on this rainbow board, you're gonna have like some small bets, but on these queen high, jack high boards, you're gonna want to have a more polar c betting strategy. So on jack 8-3, you'll want some overbets with the overpairs and ace jack and gut shots and some of the two pair mixed in. Two pair doesn't typically like to overbet just because it blocks so many continues. So yeah, and then again, so as far as developing a check back range on a board like jack a3 rainbow, again you see a lot of these middling ace-x start to check back, and then once they have like these double backdoors, then you can start to bet those. When you develop an overbetting range, you typically want to put hands that have draw equity, because like in general, when you bluff, when you get called, you want to be able to outdraw your opponent's calling range. So a hand like ace-4 of diamonds has much more going for it in that sense than ace-4 of hearts. Ace-4 of hearts isn't, it's sort of an airball. So yeah, so if you overbet, so now I'm just doing this out of curiosity, and you hit an ace, yeah, now a bunch of these ace-x can bet. We have them at a decent frequency as well, so. All right, and then as far as betting the jack-x, you'll see that a hand like jack-10 prefers betting more often than queen-jack, and that's more or less just because queen-jack has the overcard, so it's not quite as scared. Like king-jack and queen-jack aren't as scared of a turn than jack-10 or jack-9, for example. Yeah, and then ace-jack, like that's just such a strong hand. You're just trying to get the money in. Let's see. And then pocket jacks, again, don't really want to overbet that hand, blocking so much continue range. You can start to overbet some bottom set, it looks like. Let's see. Yeah, so that's and then as far as bluffs, like, yeah, a lot of this 10x with a backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw makes sense. The king high and queen high will make it in because when you overbet and you hit a king, you can start to bet those hands. So it just gives that hand more draw equity against villains continues. So, but if the thing is, like, if you overbet and you only get called by like two pair or like king jack plus, for example, like these king high and queen high hands don't do so hot, because like those king and queen outs aren't so hot. So just be sort of conscious of that. But yeah, definitely a hand like 9-7, plenty of backdoor straight draw possibilities. Same thing with 10-7. 10-9's an open ender. But yeah, you'll be mixing all those hands. Queen 9, the gut shot. So yeah. Queen 9-2 rainbow. Yeah, it's just going to be a mix of small bet, half pot, pot, check bet. So let's take a look at some of the hand selection. Again, the middling ace-x, like the ace-jack and ace-10, when they bet and get called, they can still, like for the small size, they can still hit a jack or a 10 and value bet. So that's why you'll see these go into the small size and not so much the big size. Whereas a hand like ace king can start to mix into the half pot size, because like if they hit an ace or a king, they can still value bet. So, but a hand like ace 8, like if they get called, their 8's dead and their ace isn't doing so hot either. Like you can still value bet the ace if you bet the flop and you get called and you hit an ace. It's just shitty kicker and you don't have the out to an 8. Yeah, and then once you get down to like the ace 5, ace 4, ace 3, you have the backdoor straight draw along with the backdoor flush draws. So you can start to bet those a bit more often. Let's see. Yeah, so these jack high and 10 high, certainly betting. So when you mix into the big size, you want to pay a bit more attention to the combinatorics of the opponent's folding range. So here we see a bunch of folds from the 8 high, 7 high, 6 high region, even pocket 7s and pocket 6s are folding. So this middling region here is doing a lot of the folding. Even like the ace high, like the ace 8, ace 7, ace 6, ace 5. So if you block a bunch of those hands, you typically don't want to bluff. Like you want to lean towards more checking back when you block so much of that range. Like 6-4 and 7-4 is going to start to do a bit more checking back as opposed to the rest of the range. Yeah, like 9-5. Well, 9-5 is middle pair, I guess, but yeah, if you block this region, you want to make sure you have some backdoor equity. All right. King 10-3, two-tone. So yeah, again, on these two-tone boards, you're going to be doing some more mixing. So like, let's take a look at, let's see here. So we have King 9-5 two-tone here on the right, and King 10-3 here on the left. So here we see imposition only mixing into the half pot and pot size, and on King 10-3, sorry, this is King 9-5, this is King 10-3. So on King 10-3 we see a bunch of mixing into the small size. Again, the imposition player does much better on these double Broadway boards. You're gonna have many more pairs, less interaction with the out of position range with the 10, and the imposition player is going to have plenty of gut shots. So the out of position player, yeah, see the out of position player is folding almost a third of their range, which is doing pretty good. Whereas you see over here, like on the King 9-5, they're folding like almost or over 3% more. So the small bet isn't doing quite as hot. Let's see. So if we look down here in the draw section, 7.75% flush draws, 13% gut shots. Oh, sorry, this is in position. Out of position, 9.5% flush draws, 14% gut shots. And then over here, 10% flush draws, and 10% straight draws. So the out of position player over here is going to have more straight draws to defend with. Let's see. And yeah, okay. The out of position player on this board is going to have more middle pair and bottom pair than on King 10-3. So like, yeah, the 3 just is so out of the way of the out of position defense. Like they're folding all this 10-3, bit of Jack 3, 9-3, 8-3, 7-3, as opposed to the 5 where they're pretty much calling all of it, all of the suited combinations, the exception of Ace-5. So they're just gonna have that much more to defend with on the King 9-5. If you ran like King 9-3, I'd imagine the imposition could start to develop a small bet range. But yeah, the combination of like the double Broadway board along with the junk low card allows the imposition player to bump that small frequency and just overall betting frequency up. Like on King 9-5, the overall frequency is about 50%. So let's see. I have some soothing music in the background. I decided to try that today. How long have I been recording? How long is this? I have no clue. Oh, 31 minutes? Okay. It's fine. I planned on this video being lengthy because I'm going to be learning some of this along with you guys. So this is my first time going through the range construction on the flop in detail. So in these sims specifically, I mean, obviously I've been through plenty of flop c-betting range constructions in detail, just not these. Okay, so those are some king high boards. And since I'm talking about this, I'm going to make a follow-up video on all sorts of plays you can make in the check back line for both out of position and in position. I'll probably do like a whole series on, maybe not a series, but maybe just one long video on turn probing, since that's a reason I play a lot of checkbacks, is because no one has any idea what they're doing. So I'd like to cover that. I feel like I'm really strong in that spot and construct my range really well and just generally know what I'm doing. So I definitely want to put that out there. Let's take a look at a few more boards. So here's a 6-3. Now this is a flush draw board, and this is a board where I would expect a lot of players to just c-bet their entire range. But this is definitely something you shouldn't be doing on a board like this. So if you bet small, the imposition or the out of position player is going to have tons of these 2 overcard hands. Some with a backdoor that can, like the double backdoor hands, like A7 of diamonds or whatever, that can defend. And they also have like 5-4 and like all these lower gut shots. So when you have a more polar opening range, like you're gonna start to see on these drier ace high boards, like a lot of checkbacks, just because that opposition player, like the ace high boards are a bit more equalizing as opposed to a king high board, just because the out of position player should be defending tons of ace x, even though the in position player will have an advantage towards the top of the range in ace x. and just loads of it in general, the out of position player will have plenty to defend with. So yeah. As far as a betting range on this sort of board, yeah, like these double backdoor hands. Not even the double backdoor hands, but like yeah, this middling region basically, and your ace-x, obvious. But you want to, like, when your check back frequency is this high, you want to be mixing tons of your ace-x into the check back line. But for the most part, you're going to be checking back your king high and most of your queen high. Once you get down to something like queen 5, queen 4, you can start to bet those. With the queen 5, queen 4, you block a lot of the gut shots that out of position will continue with, so that sort of makes that a better bet than a hand like queen 9. Because a hand like, say like a hand like jack 8 blocks a lot of the folding range. Like jack 8 of hearts blocks a lot of the folding range, and yeah, jack 8 of diamonds has like if you put jack 8 of diamonds into the small bet and you hit an 8, you can likely still value bet. So yeah, some interesting stuff. Now let's look at, see if there's like a comparable board in the 6-band database. This is sort of an interesting board, Queen 8-4 two-tone. Yeah, it's not that interesting. It's sort of what you'd expect, like the half pot and pot size. Well, we can go ahead and look at it, I guess. I don't think we've looked at a queen high two-tone board. So queen 8-4, two-tone, half pot and pot. As far as the range construction, a lot of this king X will bet, blocking like the strongest queen X and having an overcard. And then like this king 7, king 6, king 5 blocks a lot of the gut shots out of position would continue with. So I typically lean towards putting those into the smaller size because you don't need to risk as much when you block that portion of out of position's continues. So yeah. Let's see. Again, like these junky offsuit, like, okay, like 7. Okay, this is a bit more coordinated board, I guess. So you really want to focus more on blocking continues. Yeah, you're gonna have plenty of gut shots down here that can bet. But just note, this is a pretty wet board. Yeah, I mean 9, 10, jack 10, 5, 6, 6, 7 are all straight draws. Let's see. And then, yeah, just remember to check back plenty of your weaker queen X. Again, you'll see like king queen not betting as often as queen jack, just because king queen has the overcard, not really scared of anything. And then, yeah, this queen 7, queen 6, queen 5 blocks a lot of the continues. Again, not scared of much when you block like a lot of the turn straights. Well, when you block a lot of their outs, that is. So yeah. But on these sorts of, when you have wet boards like this, you generally want to pull from your gut shots to bluff. So like, you know, you'll bluff your 10-9, Jack-9, Jack-10, and you know, not so much like the 9-5. Just because like you have so many bluffs already, like you don't need to pull from those. Sure, there's some element of the combinatorics of the folding range. Yeah, folding plenty of the lower gut shots anyhow. But yeah, a hand like 9-5 of clubs and 9-5 of hearts doesn't, because like if you pot it out of positions, just folding, pretty much straight folding like 6-5 of hearts, that would otherwise continue if it had a backdoor. So you'd rather bet like the 9-5 of diamonds or spades that block the 6-5 of diamonds or spades that would continue, because the 9-5 of hearts and clubs would just fold to a bet, so you block their folding range. So yeah, just a bunch of different things to keep in mind during range construction. Yeah, I didn't have like a very strict script for this video. I just kind of wanted to walk you guys through a bunch of the things I'm thinking. So if you have the patience to watch this video, you will become a better poker player. So congratulations. King 3 deuce 2-tone, interesting. Yeah, small bets and checks. Like the imposition players, like on these high low low boards, your betting frequency is going to go down, and I don't think it takes a genius to figure that out. It's just the imposition player's not going to interact with a 3 deuce X board very well. I'd imagine if the king was a lower card, like a 10 or a 9, it would, the betting frequency would go down even more. Well, here we can take a look at 7-3 deuce. Let's see. Okay, so, well, okay, that texture is going to change some things. Obviously, we don't interact with this board very much. We have plenty of 7x, but yeah, the 3 and the 2 we're not doing too well on. But we're going to have the advantage in overpairs, so we're going to have a pot range to get the money in with that, along with the a7. So let's see. Look at a board like 10-5-2. Okay, yeah, like 10 high board, 10 high rainbow board. The rainbow thing is going to drive the size down. On a 10 high flush draw board, you'll start to see like more potting and overbetting. But here we just see like half pot or check. Overall betting around 2/3 of the time, checking back about 1/3. Let's see. Do we have it? Oh, okay. 10-7-2 2-tone. I'd imagine there's a lot of big bets in this. Not as many as I thought. I thought there'd be some overbetting here. Half pot and pot. Okay. So on these 4-span 10 high boards, mostly just going to be half pot on these 10 high boards, and on the flush draw boards you can start to mix in some pot, or you can just like on the rainbow boards you can just use half pot, and then on the 2-tone boards you can just use 3/4 or check. That's also fine. Just understand that your frequency is going to go down and your size is going to go up on the two-tone boards, just in general. Just because the equities are going to even out a little bit, and the out of position player is going to have more hands to defend. Let's see, so I'm looking over on my other monitor at the 6-band database. Okay, so we have 10-6-2 two-tone. Okay, so here we have mostly pot and 2x pot on the flop. 2x pot is going to be the overbetting, or the over pairs, along with ace-10. And then, so if you haven't watched Zenith's video on overbetting flops, I highly recommend you do it. It's what first introduced me to overbetting flops, and it's a very interesting video, and I implement it quite often. And like there are plenty of regs out there that have never even heard of flop overbetting, much less studied the line. So I recommend you become versed in it and master it, and figure out what's going on in that line. But yeah, you'll see it's mostly over pairs. So yeah, let's see, on this 10 high board, most of our bluffs, like we're gonna be checking back pretty much all of our ace-x that doesn't have the backdoor wheel. If we bet pot, see the folding range is going to be mostly what? You know, a lot of this queen high and king high, no backdoor. A lot of these lower hands are going to be able to continue. So yeah. Let's see. But out of position has like all this 10x, like all these offsuit 10x. That is one thing about 10 high boards, like out of position has a lot of offsuit 10x. So I guess that sort of evens out, kind of neutralizes the negative, the fold blocking effects of a Broadway card. Overall, which looks like yeah, potting with a lot of king high and favoring a backdoor, but you're going to be mixing with all of them. Like the overall frequency is about 50% on these 10 high two-tone boards, so just stay around that frequency with most hands, you know, that do okay as a bluff. But yeah, it looks like so these king high hands, when they bet and get called, they can value bet if they hit a king on the turn. Like if they pot and get called and the turn's a king, they can still value bet quite comfortably for a big size. So yep, just has a bit more draw equity than these lower cards. Yeah, like these 5-3, if they pot and get called, like their pair outs are no good. But they still have the gut shot, so they can still do some betting. Yeah, a hand like 8-5 doesn't like they have the 1 over card to the 6, and that's pretty dicey. So not gonna be like the draw equity on that hand isn't so great. Yeah, and you see 8-5 of spades playing a lot like the other 8-5 without a backdoor. So if we check back turns a king, you'll see this card is pretty good for imposition. So the frequency for the out of position player is going to go down, and the out of position player is going to be using a pretty polar strategy. It's going to be 2xing the turn, or checking, but mostly checking, obviously. So yeah, just kind of wanted to give a sneak peek, I guess. Okay. Let's look at some other lower boards. Okay, let's look at Ace Jack 4. I don't think we've looked at that board. Okay, so Ace Jack 4, it's going to be potting or 2xing the flop. One thing that's nice about this board is our bluffs on the flop are pretty natural. Like, we have plenty of gut shots to choose from. But yeah, we definitely have an advantage in 2-pair and ace-king and ace-queen. So we can get, like, the out-of-position players, when we overbet, the out-of-position player is going to have to put money in with plenty of worse hands, which is nice. That's how we generate expectation when we overbet. Like, there's no point in overbetting ace-king if we never get called by worse ace-x. So. Yeah. Looks like our overall frequency is going to go down quite a bit on this board. But again, like on most two-tone boards, we should be using a pretty polar strategy. So top pair, middle pair, weak pair. I'm just sort of looking at these frequencies over on the right. Yeah, so the out of position player has a good bit more of middle and weak pair than we do, and okay, we still have more 2-pair, I suppose. I'm sort of surprised to see an overbet on this board. That's kind of interesting. I mean, it is a board with plenty of gut shots. I mean, it definitely makes sense to use a very polar strategy on this board. Now, one thing you should note is if you pot and your opponent calls any jack, you should be aware that it like versus a pot size bet, you don't call a jack without a double backdoor, basically. Like, Jack 6 of hearts is not calling, and then so we should cover this while we're here. So obviously you would call any ace, but when you're selecting a jack to call, you have to be aware that you have to be conscious of your outs if you're currently behind, right? So let's say you have a hand like Jack 10. Well, the out of position is going to be the in position player, is going to be bluffing quite a bit of King 10, right? Because that's a gut shot. So when you call a pot size bet with Jack 10, if you hit a 10, King, let's say King Queen, like they're going to be bluffing King Queen, right? If you hit a 10, like you're getting stacked, right? And so basically when you're picking from your Jack X to call, you want to call the junkiest kickers versus the more polar bet, uh, like the more polar betting strategy. Um, so yeah, like here you see versus the 2x pot bet, you'll see like some Jack 3 of diamonds get called, uh, Jack 5, Jack 6, but no Jack 9 or Jack 10. It's just because when they hit 2 pair, like they can just get cooler, so be conscious of that. But that's more something to focus on versus the big bets. And that's definitely a thing you should be thinking about in the turn overbet line. Is like when you're constructing a defense range, you have to think about like your 2 pair outs on the river, and if a lot of their bluffs will outdraw you when you hit, like when you hit 2 pair or whatever. Think about how often you get coolered when you call like a 2x pot bet or a pot bet. But versus the smaller size, you defend much more linearly. A, because like stacks aren't going to get in as often, and B, they're going to have a much wider value range. So you don't have to be quite as concerned about it. Ace King 3 two-tone. I'd imagine there's some overbetting on this board. Yeah. So it's pretty much exclusively 2x, some pot mixed in, but mostly 2x and checking. So you'll see the bluffs are mostly gut shots, and then like some jack high with a flush draw or backdoor. Then like some of these lower jump cards with a backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. Then all these lower pairs are just checking back, along with the King X. King X is just checking back. And then like sort of the cutoff is like Ace 10, Ace 9-ish. Like Ace 9 with a flush draw can start to bet at a pretty high frequency, but once it gets lower than that, like your overall frequency goes down quite a bit. So yeah. But yeah, you should definitely go watch the Zenith video on flop overbetting, and Thomas will explain why a lot of this is. I mean, this should be sort of obvious. It's just because the in-position player has the advantage in Ace King, Kings, and Aces. It mostly to do with the Ace King though. Like the out of position player is just gonna have to stack off with worse quite a bit. So you just want to get the money in as early as possible. But yeah, you're just trying to get stacks in basically. And then Ace King 5, you'll see, I would imagine, so Ace King 5 Rainbow. I'd imagine you'd see more small betting. Okay, I'm wrong. I thought I saw a sim at one point in time on Ace King 5 Rainbow specifically where there was like mostly small betting. But it looks like Ace King 5, like Ace King X regardless, is just 2x or check. I mean, that's what I play in game. So yeah. Cool. Jack 7-3, Rainbow, probably a bunch of half pot. Okay, a bunch of half pot and some overbetting. Although this is a pretty coordinated board. Like Jack 7-2, the overbetting would probably go down. Let's see, is there like a comparable board over here? Jack Jack high, Jack 8-3. I don't think there was any overbetting on this board. Oh, there was actually. Okay, interesting. So yeah, like, I mean, a lot more of the range goes into the small size. But yeah, okay, interesting. So the dry Jack high boards, it's just half pot or 2x pot basically. Jack 8-3 two-tone. Okay, Jack. So the dry Jack high two-tone boards are like half pot or pot basically. Okay. Sorry if I'm getting sort of repetitive on sort of this stuff. Some of this I'm trying to get down myself. Okay, so yeah, less coordinated board on Jack 5 deuce than Jack 7 deuce. Frequency, or your, size can go down quite a bit. Yeah, okay, I think that's intuitive if you've looked at flop c-betting spots before. Okay, I'll let you take a peek at this. So ace queen 5 two-tone, basically pot or 2x or check. Okay. So let's take a look at some of these lower boards in a bit more detail. So here's 7-3-2, it's half pot or pot, so that's rainbow. Here's 9-3-2 two-tone, mostly pot. 9-4-2 rainbow, half pot or even 2x. Okay, interesting. Then 10-5-2 is a bunch of half pot, I think. Yeah. Over here, the only low boards are 10-6-2 rainbow. Yeah, so it's half pot and 2x. So on 10-6-2 rainbow, your main bluffs for the overbet size are going to be overcards to the 10, preferably with a backdoor. And then, yeah, hands with backdoor draw equity. Because like when you 2x the flop and get called, like you have to have draw equity in some sense. Like if you 2x the flop, turns an ace, yeah, you can still bet your ace-x. But yeah, you'll just have a half pot size after you 2x the flop. I mean, there's no point in like potting it on this turn. Not so much because of the SPR, but just because of like the interaction of the ranges. Like, you're not going to be able to like pot the turn and get called by a bunch worse. Like if you pot the turn, it's going to be tough to get. Like you're folding king 10, so on the turn. So yeah. It's 10-6-2, Jack 7-3 two-tone, mostly just potting. And 6-2 two-tone is mostly pot. You can mix in some half pot or overbets, but mostly pot. And then ace 10-2. This is sort of a unique board because there's going to be so many gut shots for out of position. You're going to be mostly potting this board, especially ace 10-2 specifically on the 2, because there's going to be like 5-4, 5-3. 4-3, that sort of thing for out of position. Okay, that's sort of what I wanted to run through today. Hopefully you guys learned something from, you know, me looking through some of these. So yeah, if you guys have any questions on a specific board or range construction, definitely let me know. If there's a certain line you'd like me to do a video on regarding these sims, definitely let me know. I think I'm going to go ahead and start working on a couple probing videos. Sometime in the near future, I'm going to be doing a whole series or mini course on blind versus blind and out of position versus an in position cold color single raised pot. From flop to river. I mean, I'm not gonna make a different video for all those spots, but general overviews. So be on the lookout for that. I think I'm just going to release that through the Zenith website. So yeah, thanks guys for stopping in.